But I don't think he has even an idea what Parliament is all about. So it is out of depth and what I call internal limit, that his frustrations is venting out against an institution that is supposed to be an area where Kenyans should take solace. But I wish he could also have some conscience. I don't know whether he knows what conscience is in English. The conscience is something that you find yourself in the wrong place and you realize you are not doing the right thing.
Discernment.
Yes. So I hope he will understand that.
Truly delighted to have you on Richard Mwanje Exclusive, the Year of Our Lord 2024. This is your only point of call when it comes to matters, politics and governance analysis here in Kenya and across the region. Hosted by yours truly, Richard Mwanje. Today is slightly under the weather, pardon me that. But let me first introduce our analyst for the day. It is none other than this firebrand, former cabinet minister, Kipruto Arab Kiro. Looking sharp as always.
I like you call me firebrand, but the fire is off.
It isn't off.
Yeah.
We know what the streets are saying, and truly, you are still a force to reckon with.
I thank God for it because, as I've always insisted, this is part of the nation building. We cannot pretend that this country can move forward without each one of us making their contribution in whatever little corner. That's why the aggregate of all the activities in Kenya is what makes what we call GDP, which means the mama mboga, the person in the village, and those in Nairobi in the streets, even the hawkers. They are actually making a contribution to our GDP. Yeah, so that's why when you talk of GDP, the population and the effort of that population in a calendar period. So I'm making mine through this. So don't ask me whether I can I can dig or I can hold the farm, because that one I leave to other people. But I can also tend the compound. Yeah, whenever you come, you realize it's clean.
Very clean, always neat.
Thank
Trust me, your service is not taken for granted, and your impact is felt out here.
Asante.
Very well, let's start from the most recent development, that is the president's return from his high-profile state visit to the United States of America. And with him came a bag of goodies, investments in the country from the security sector to other matters of national development. But let me ask this. As a country, much as he has brought so much goodies to us, some of which you know of and our audience knows of, should we also put equal attention to what was given to the United States of America, or we should trust the political conscience, or rather the conscience of the president, that he presented the best interest of the country before the U.S.?
Well, it is useful. You cannot downplay the role the president has played in terms of negotiating for certain services to be rendered and resources also to be brought to Kenya. But remember, as I've always told you, the rule of the thumb is that these external partners, for every $1 they bring in, $7 will fly out. You look, for example, some of the services they are saying they are rendering to us, it's just investment for their business people, including the Mombasa-Nairobi
that
expressway, because you're going to pay to use them. And therefore, it may be something good because it is improving general infrastructure in Kenya.
True.
But what we should be doing is, what is the component of Kenya that is in that expressway, for purposes of ensuring that we leave much of the money here. For my 5,000 that I get into expressway between here and Mombasa, is it going to fly out of the country, or some of it is going to be retained in Kenya? That's something critical, and I hope the president was able to look at the small letters, because that is where the details are, and they say the devil is in the details. The second issue that is very important for us is I would have wanted to see more investment in the agriculture sector, both livestock and crop subsectors, because we know for the last 2 years or so, we were ravaged by drought. that decimated livestock in most of the frontiers, like the northern part of Kenya, Kajiado, Pokot, Narok. And if you visited those places last year, you would realize that a herd of cattle almost disappeared. Somebody who had 150 was left with about 10 or 15. So that's the subsector that I would have expected the president to invest in for purposes of ensuring that we are sufficient in terms of food production. I would have also expected that there would be something to go to the crop production. That would assist the farmers and distribute the wealth of the nation. The second issue is it is important for us not to be seen to be at the altar of competition between the East and the West. I hope the data center that the president talked about is not just to compete with the Chinese in Konza. I hope they are going to implement it there in Konza so that they run parallel. But if we become pawns in the game of East and West, we run the risk of destroying our own fabric and our own economy. The third issue, which I feel is important from that trip, is the training that they said it's going to train the police and the security services. I do hope the president in his wisdom will use those resources to bring people from Haiti, train them, and take them back to Haiti to deal with the situation at home. For a number of reasons, Richard. Sure. One, people do better when they are at home because they know the terrain. If you came to my village in Kitale and at night some kind of commotion breaks out, you don't know which direction to go, which way to hide, because the terrain you are not used to.
The lay of the land.
Yeah, the terrain. I remember President Kibaki when we entered Somalia about a number of years ago. What we did was to have some forces in Somalia, but we brought recruits from Somalia and we trained them in Manyani and various places so that they go back and fight their own war, so that we don't enter the war that we don't know what the exit plan is. So I would expect the president, now that he has been given that opportunity, to use those resources here at home, bring them for training, then fly them back, and they deal with the situation they understand best. Because the situation in Haiti, many countries have tried. All the missions that have gone to Haiti for the last almost 100 years, they have not succeeded. And some of them, they went in big numbers, not just a paltry 2,000 people or 1,000 people. And they're saying they are building the barracks now, and yet initially they said for certain strategic installations. Of course, what happened with those installations? Because you cannot expose our boys and girls to the vagaries of a terrain such as Haiti, where literally everybody has a gun. So I would have expected the president to spend more time and use his wisdom to ensure that we bring their boys and girls, we train them here, and we take them there. You see, the America has been doing some kind of double-edged. They give you weaponry and money. Then your boys go to Congo and they pay some little money. Why don't they bring their boys and girls to Congo? Even Afghanistan, the so-called green card for young men like Ryan, they would take them there and recruit them in their military and take them to the battlefront. So this is something that we feel as a child of international community. I feel America is getting unfair share of support from the rest of us, and they're using their resources while we are using our blood to reclaim some of the areas they have lost.
On the Haiti mission, President William Ruto, you know too well, is a president of many fasts.
Yeah.
And even on this particular mission, don't you think, or are you not confident that he's also going to make a new fast of having entered into a new frontier and came out successful with the mission?
Well, that's my prayer, but what I know as a scholar in international relations, I know the Haiti mission is a mission to nowhere. I'm saying this today, and I will stand the test of time. Remember, I was saying we don't need to take our children to Haiti. Until the other day, they are postponed. And yet when the president was going to America, it was hyped like there will be another flight. As the president takes the jet, another flight, possibly by Kenya Airways, will also take our children to Haiti. But it never became, it became a cropper because the terrain is not sustainable.
Very well.
Yeah.
Before we close the conversation on the president's visit to the United States of America, how about we now look at the cost element of the trip, which he has defended and said, case in point, when it comes to his air travel, he had a better alternative, which is a separate airline from the national carrier, which is Kenya Airways, because Kenya Airways came across as one that was more expensive than the rest in the region. Would you then, I mean, what taste does this leave in the mouth of the national carrier, which is Kenya Airways, and also in the face of the public? Is austerity all about offering alternatives or literally walking the talk on cutting every bit of the expense?
You know, what worries me is that you have a tractor, you have a farm. And what you need to do for that tractor is to fuel it, and you get a driver, and you plow your farm. Then I choose that I'm not using my tractor. I'm going to hire that one of Richard at 4,500 an acre. And yet I would have spent 1,700 to fuel my tractor and plow the same acreage. So it worries me. Number two, the president is a symbol of national unity and national prosperity. I would have expected the pride of Africa to be the carrier that is taking the president there, whether it is more expensive or not. And of course, I'm sure you've seen in the social media President Kibaki disembarking from Kenya Airways when he was coming from America about almost like 15 years ago. Why doesn't the president realize that President Moi, President Uhuru, President Kibaki, they were using normal flights, but they reconfigure to allow the president to enjoy the comfort and also for his delegation to have the privacy that they require. It is common all over. Even America, where he was going, congressmen and senators, they don't travel first class, they travel economy. Why? Because you must demonstrate by example that leadership is not about plundering the resources of the country. You lead by example. That is why we say there are many words that are akin to mentorship. There is training, there is coaching, there is teaching. There are many words that go around that. But mentorship, mentoring, is the key word because you are able to demonstrate that what you are telling us to do, you yourself you are doing. So the president failed in mentoring exercise to mentor Kenyans to realize we have to copy what our head of state is doing. And you know, there is power in mentoring and there is power in position where somebody holds. Remember 2017 or 2018, no, 2013, when President Uhuru and President Ruto won the election, and they were using untucked shirts. And all these young men in the street, they were using untucked shirts.
Yeah.
You've seen Joho with that beard of his. Many young men now, they are copying that style.
Borrowing leaf
Yeah,
from them.
because you see, when you are a leader, you influence society in many ways. Even you, without saying anything, people will copy your style of doing things.
So then if you go into bad manners, it's going to trickle
Then
down.
you increase the bad manners in society because you are like, you know, torch. What? Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah. A torch, where the power comes from, the light comes from, is as big as this cup.
Yeah, sure.
But as it goes out, it spreads.
Magnified.
It magnifies itself. Now, even as a leader, when you behave in a certain way, those who support you will behave like you. Yeah. Even working style. If you are to work like this and people like you, they will work in that style. You find people in the street, okay, they are copying Richard.
So then again, for a government that is oftentimes speaking about how they are walking the talk on cutting on government expenditure, and when it comes to this issue of foreign travel, would you then say that this fight is all about chasing after the winds? No,
I think the president does not believe in the team that he has. Of course, he's been in public domain saying that he knows more than each minister does in their own portfolio, which is the opposite of Kibaki. Kibaki moved away himself and allowed ministers and the team under him or her to run the show. And you interacted with him when you wanted to consult him on certain policy decisions or he wanted clarification on certain issues. But for him, he doesn't seem to believe in the team he has. Because, you know, some of the negotiations can be downscaled to the level of the PS, even lower level of ambassador, then you upscale it PS, then to the minister, because we have Minister for Foreign Affairs, who is really the main person who signs most of the agreements between us and international partners. So some of the trips can be scaled down to the level of a minister, can be scaled down to level of technical staff, and that is how governments all over the world work if they want to save. Because presidential visit, let's say even to my village, is 10 times more expensive than a minister coming to my village in terms of the actual cost, security, checking the area, doing all those things. Because presidential visit is not just like me coming to your house. Even when I come to your house, I make it expensive because you will clean the compound, you will clean many things, and possibly you might even change your shirt because I'm coming.
Very well.
Yeah, at my level, imagine. If the president was to come, you might run out of home.
It is on a bigger scale.
It's a higher scale. So the president should realize that, yes, we appreciate his hard working.
But I'm curious to understand, why then is it a hard, or rather a tall order for him to make a complete overhaul of his cabinet? If you're saying he even takes concern with the competency of some of the people he appointed, what is holding him back from making that overhaul?
I think basically he gave those positions on political consideration. That is a campaign machine for the next election.
At the expense of his legacy?
The problem is he thinks he will be able to achieve all those things in spite of these inefficiencies. But the main challenge is not even the ministers. Many of them, I know them. We've worked with them. Like Musalia, I was his assistant minister in the Ministry of Agriculture. He's a hardworking person, focused, but it is the boss himself who needs to let go, to manage in a style that he multiplies his effort through the capacity of others.
Very well.
That I've reminded him many times, but I don't think he has heard me. Now, make sure that he gets this information.
I'll try my level.
He's very hardworking, but he should let go. He should not be a micromanager.
Very well.
Yeah.
Or fist managing the entire situation.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift gears and talk matters bit of regional politics. And how about we go to the Rift Valley and scale down to Kapseret Member of Parliament Oscar Sudi, who has come forth and defended himself after people went after him that his absence in Parliament is worrying his electorate and worrying the country. And from Sudi, he said he's better out there making business instead of being in the corridors of Parliament, doing nothing much beyond rumor mongering and malicing and all those things. So when an MP reduces Parliament to a house of malice planning and all that, and justifying why he's oftentimes not in the floor of the house debating or legislating, do you take concern with someone underrunning some of his constitutional duties?
Well, what worries me is that I was an MP for 4 terms, and I thank God and I thank the people of Cherangani for allowing me that opportunity to serve them for 20 years. But before even I became an MP, I desired to become one. And when I got there, I knew my role was cut out. 1, to represent the people. 2, to articulate issues of national interest. And 3, is to legislate and to oversight the executive. I might have succeeded, but the success is out there for somebody else to say. But I enjoyed my job because I believed it was something like a calling. But Sudi perhaps might have seen some guys who are members of Parliament. He admired them and he wanted to be like them. So in the process, he found himself in the most awkward place. Because he doesn't have the patience to go through every piece of legislation and articulate 1 or 2 things, because this Parliament if you have a problem with English, he can use Kiswahili, which I know is very articulate in Kiswahili. Whatever the formula, when you are in this parliament, you can use a language you're comfortable with between Kiswahili and English. But I don't think he has even an idea what parliament is all about. So it is out of depth and what I call internal limit, that his frustrations is venting out against an institution that is supposed to be an area where Kenyans should take solace whenever the executive shows some excesses. But you can see the current parliament has already been emasculated. If people like Sudi are said to be members of parliament, and the rest of them who could have been able to stand up to be counted seem to have been compromised by the executive, either through threats or some kind of willy dealing. Yeah.
When an MP is proud to say that he has absconded parliament because of business interest, do you then take the blame squarely at the doorstep of his electorate, the intelligence of his electorate, or who then do you blame for that?
Well, it's both. The person who stays in an institution and does not respect it, because when you don't respect an institution, you can go home and do something else. Also, the electorate has also some share of blame, because I don't think electorate in Kenya today understands the role of an MP. For them, it's supposed to be ATM, it's supposed to be the best mourner, it's supposed to be the first person who appears in every wedding and leaves some huge tons of money. And I think Sudi has demonstrated sufficiently that he's able to do some of those things. And therefore, the electorate is happy with him. And I wish him well. But I wish he could also have some conscience. I don't know whether he knows what conscience is in English. The conscience is something that you find yourself in the wrong place and you realize you are not doing the right thing.
Discernment.
Yes. So I hope he will understand that and also move away from a house he does not have any respect for. But the people of Kapseret also, they have alternatives, but I don't know why they don't seem to realize that they are lowering the standard of the people of Eldoret and the people of Kapseret in particular.
Very well. In the fullness of time, what danger lies in that trend? Should we even see more members of parliament come forth and rightly and publicly so say their agenda is to be in the ground and not in parliament? What danger lies in that?
It lies in the fact that you will allow the executive to overrun the people, and therefore you will have absconded in your national duty. The second issue is that examples of Sudi makes people not see the need to go back to school or to be in school. And people will say, the MP, of course I don't know his papers very well, but I don't think he went beyond primary education. So it will make so many children see no need to go to school, because if it is about vehicles, if it's about where he lives, if it's about money, he has enough of it. And he didn't go to school. But I don't know what business does he do, apart from the salary he gets from parliament. I don't know.
He's an engineer.
He's an engineer of some sorts, of some complicated industry.
Complex web.
It's a bit too complex. I don't know. Possibly, possibly even bad manners can be engineered. So he could be an engineer of bad manners, because you can engineer it because it's one of the social norms that determine a society. Are
you envious of his success this far, even when it comes to wealth accumulation and material gain?
Well, I would be ashamed if I used the route he has been using. I would be ashamed. I would rather stay the way I am.
You would?
In my little counter suit and survive. What is it that you need actually to survive? Just a glass of water in the morning, tea, perhaps even you can skip lunch, and you have something small in the evening.
You wouldn't wish to donate millions in churches like many of your fellow politicians are doing?
As long as the means is lawful that you have used to acquire that. I would not mind. Possibly manna might fall from the heavens, and I'll be so generous, not even in the church. I would be even making you happy, and everybody.
Well,
because it's good to give when you have, but you cannot give what you don't have or what does not belong to you, and you expect people to appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, there you have it. That point by former Minister Kipruto Arap Kirwa takes us to the wrap of this conversation. We've been discussing a cocktail of issues in the world of politics and governance, talking matters to do with the president's return from the historic United States of America state visit. We've also unpacked some of the goodies he's brought the country, and probably what should worry you as a taxpayer and as a citizen at large. We've also traversed to other sections of this conversation and talked about local politics, matters to do with the political interest of Captain Member of Parliament Oscar Sudi and what portends for him in the future of politics, as well as many other leaders. We've talked about them in this conversation. Until we meet next time on Richard Monge Exclusive, do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Keep it up, Kiro. Pardon me today, my energy is a bit low, but at least you've been gracious enough to grant me this interview.
Yep.
And it's always a privilege to have you on board.
I understand, and a quick recovery.
Asante sana.
Yep.
Well, until next time, do enjoy the rest of your viewing.